Here's what we're covering today. First, I'll show you why most data cultures fail and the hidden cost of these failures. Then we'll break down the three-part framework for integrating data culture across departments. Finally, I'll give you the exact scripts and techniques to get buy-in from resistant team members. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete roadmap for transforming your organization's relationship with data, even if previous attempts have fallen flat. This isn't theory, it's a battle-tested approach used by leading companies to turn data from a specialist tool into an organizational asset. Did you know that up to 90% of data stored in organizations is unused and considered dead data? It's a staggering figure that reveals a hidden reality across the business landscape. Behind every sleek corporate dashboard and polished data presentation lies a massive graveyard of information that's consuming resources without providing any value in return. This isn't just an abstract technical issue, it's a silent drain on organizational resources happening in plain sight. Let me introduce you to the concept of dead data more thoroughly. Dead data refers to information that organizations collect and store but never actually use. It sits in databases, data lakes, and storage systems, taking up space and consuming electricity, yet providing zero return on investment. The financial impact is more significant than most executives realize. Storing just 1 terabyte of dead data generates 7.2 kilograms of CO2 annually and costs thousands in storage and management fees. Now multiply that by the petabytes of data that large organizations maintain, and you're looking at a substantial environmental and financial burden that most companies haven't even calculated. What's particularly alarming is the global scale of this issue. According to energy experts, data centers already consume between 1 to 2% of global electricity, a figure that might seem small until you place it in context. That's roughly the same as the entire electricity consumption of some small countries. Even more concerning is where this trend is heading. If current practices continue without intervention, data center electricity usage is projected to reach a staggering 8% of global consumption by 2040. As Francis O'Rafferty, senior manager at Baringa, points out, dead data and unused data still consume resources, creating significant inefficiencies in how organizations manage their information assets. This observation cuts to the heart of a paradox in modern business. We treat data as valuable, yet we waste most of it. The environmental impact is just one dimension of this problem. There's also the matter of wasted human potential. In organizations worldwide, highly skilled data professionals, people with advanced degrees and specialized training, spend countless hours organizing, cleaning, and managing data that will ultimately never be analyzed or used for decision-making. It's like hiring a team of world-class architects to design buildings that will never be constructed. This wasteful approach extends beyond just storing unnecessary data. Many organizations compound the problem through poor data management practices. Companies frequently maintain multiple duplicates of the same datasets across different departments or systems. Each copy increases complexity, storage requirements, and the potential for inconsistencies. When an organization has 5 copies of the same customer database, maintained by 5 different teams with slightly different fields and update schedules, the result isn't redundancy for safety. It's a recipe for confusion and resource waste. What's particularly frustrating about this situation is that many companies haven't even measured the scale of the problem within their own operations. When organizations do conduct audits of their data usage and storage, they often discover that their unused data constitutes a substantial portion of their IT costs. One financial services company found that nearly 70% of their stored data hadn't been accessed in over 3 years. Yet, they were paying premium rates for its high availability storage and backup. But why does this happen? The root cause typically isn't technical limitation or even budget constraints. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of data's purpose within organizations. Many businesses have adopted a collect everything mentality without developing clear strategies for how that information will drive value. It's equivalent to hoarding, keeping data just in case it might be useful someday without any concrete plans for its use. This mindset is particularly evident in how data initiatives are framed. When companies launch new data collection efforts, the focus is typically on the infrastructure, the tools, and the technical specifications. Rarely is there adequate discussion of the business objectives, the specific decisions that will be informed, or the problems that will be solved. Without this clarity, organizations end up with vast repositories of information that aren't aligned with actual business needs. The confusion about data's purpose often stems from treating data as an end in itself rather than a means to better decision making. In many organizations, collecting and storing data has become a goal rather than a method. Success is measured by the volume of data collected or the sophistication of the storage architecture rather than by the quality of insights generated or decisions improved. This confusion manifests in real business consequences. Consider a retail company that collects detailed information about customer browsing patterns but never integrates this data with its inventory management system. The data exists but fails to influence crucial decisions about stock levels or product placement. The company pays to collect, store, and maintain this information without realizing any of its potential value. Or think about a manufacturing firm that implements sensors throughout its production line, generating terabytes of operational data that sits unanalyzed while managers continue to make maintenance decisions based on fixed schedules rather than actual equipment performance. The data that could transform their operations exists but remains unused because the organization hasn't aligned its decision-making processes with its data capabilities. The problem extends to how organizations structure their data teams. In many companies, data professionals operate in isolation from the business units they're meant to support. They become caretakers of data rather than enablers of better business outcomes. When data teams don't have deep understanding of business problems or regular interaction with decision makers, they can't effectively translate raw information into actionable insights. What's becoming increasingly clear is that there's a root cause behind this widespread problem. The wasteful approach to data management isn't primarily a technical failing or even a resource constraint. It's a symptom of organizational culture. Most data problems aren't actually technical issues at all. They're people problems that manifest in how organizations collect, store, and use information. This realization represents a fundamental shift in how we need to approach data strategy. Rather than focusing exclusively on bigger databases, more advanced analytics tools, or more sophisticated algorithms, organizations need to address the human elements that determine how data is valued and used. The most advanced technical infrastructure won't solve problems if the organizational culture doesn't support effective data usage. The solution begins with reconceptualizing data governance, not as a technical discipline, but as an organizational change initiative. It requires clear leadership that establishes data as a strategic asset with specific business purposes. It demands alignment between data capabilities and business objectives. And perhaps most importantly, it calls for a culture where data-informed decision-making is valued and rewarded at all levels. Companies that successfully address this challenge don't just implement technical solutions, they transform how their organizations think about and interact with data. They establish clear data ownership and stewardship. They create processes for regularly reviewing and retiring unnecessary data. They align incentives to encourage good data management practices. and they ensure that data initiatives are directly tied to specific business outcomes. While transforming organizational thinking about data requires looking beyond technology, the true challenge lies in something far more difficult to optimize: human behavior. Have you ever wondered why companies invest millions in sophisticated data platforms yet continue to make decisions based on gut feelings? Or why data quality initiatives initially succeed only to deteriorate within months? The answer isn't hiding in broken algorithms or inadequate systems. Susan Walsh, known as the classification guru, has identified a fundamental truth that's reshaping how we approach data management. Data problems are people problems. This insight shifts our entire perspective from seeking technical solutions to understanding the human elements driving data challenges. It's not your database architecture that's causing inconsistent customer information. It's how your sales team enters that information in the first place. The conventional wisdom suggests that data challenges can be solved by implementing better technology or hiring more skilled data professionals. Yet, organizations following this approach often find themselves trapped in a cycle of purchasing new tools and expanding their data teams without addressing the underlying issues. The reality is far more nuanced. The most sophisticated data infrastructure will fail if the people interacting with it don't understand its purpose or value. Consider what happens in most organizations every day. Your marketing team enters customer information focused primarily on campaign metrics, not data accuracy. Your sales representatives prioritize closing deals, not ensuring consistent data entry. Your finance department maintains separate spreadsheets because they don't trust the central system. Each of these behaviors creates ripple effects throughout your data ecosystem, yet none of them are technical problems, they're people problems. What makes this challenge particularly difficult is that most individuals working with data aren't data professionals. They're experts in their own domains who interact with data as part of their job functions. The marketing specialist entering customer information likely hasn't been trained in data standards. The sales representative updating the CRM is focused on relationship management, not database integrity. These non-data professionals form the front line of data entry and management, yet many organizations fail to recognize their critical role in the data ecosystem. In fact, Susan Walsh's research reveals that many non-data professionals simply don't see the value in maintaining data quality at all. This disconnect stems not from negligence, but from a fundamental misalignment between how different departments perceive data's purpose. For the data team, quality and consistency are paramount. For other departments, data is merely a means to an end, a tool for achieving their primary objectives. When these perspectives clash, data quality inevitably suffers. Departmental silos further exacerbate this problem by creating isolated islands of information with inconsistent standards and practices. In one manufacturing company, the production team tracked equipment performance using their own metrics and definitions, while the maintenance department used an entirely different set of standards. When executives tried to analyze equipment efficiency, they discovered that the two departments were essentially speaking different languages despite referring to the same physical assets. This pattern repeats across industries and organizations. A healthcare provider discovered that patient information was being recorded differently depending on whether it was entered by administrative staff, nurses, or physicians. Not only did this create confusion, but it also introduced potential safety risks as critical patient data became inconsistent across systems. The root cause wasn't technical. The electronic health record system functioned perfectly. The issue stemmed from different professional groups having distinct priorities and approaches to documentation. The misalignment between data teams and business units creates another layer of complexity. Data professionals operate with one set of objectives: data accuracy, consistency, and usability, while business teams focus on operational efficiency, customer satisfaction, or sales targets. Without proper alignment, neither group fully understands the other's priorities, leading to confusion about data ownership and responsibility. Consider what happens when a data governance initiative is launched without addressing this misalignment. The data team implements new quality standards and validation rules, only to face resistance from business units who view these requirements as administrative burdens that slow down their work. The initiative is perceived as the data team's project rather than a shared organizational priority. Unsurprisingly, compliance gradually decreases as business teams find workarounds to complete their tasks more quickly. Behavioral psychology offers additional insights into why technical solutions often fail to address data challenges. Humans naturally resist change, especially when it disrupts established workflows. We tend to prioritize immediate needs over long-term benefits, which explains why a sales representative might skip data entry fields that don't directly help them close the current deal. We also follow the path of least resistance, creating shortcuts that may compromise data quality but make our daily work easier. Some organizations have attempted to address these issues through purely technical means, implementing more validation rules, automating data quality checks, or restricting system access. While these approaches may create temporary improvements, they often fail to create lasting change because they don't address the underlying behavioral patterns and motivations. It's similar to treating symptoms without addressing the disease. A revealing case study comes from a financial services firm that implemented a sophisticated master data management system. The technology worked perfectly, but adoption rates remained disappointingly low. Investigation revealed that department heads hadn't been involved in defining data quality standards, employees hadn't been adequately trained, and there were no incentives for maintaining data quality. The technical solution was sound, but the human elements had been overlooked. This pattern repeats across industries. Technical solutions falter when they don't account for human factors. Data governance frameworks fail without proper change management. Data quality tools gather dust when they're not aligned with user workflows. Data standards become shelfware when they're not connected to meaningful business outcomes that employees already care about. The path forward requires a fundamental shift in how we approach data management. Rather than starting with technology, successful organizations start with people, understanding their behaviors, motivations, and perceptions of data's value. They recognize that bridging the gap between data teams and non-technical departments is essential for creating effective data practices. This people-first approach has several key components. First, it involves improving data literacy across all departments, ensuring that everyone understands not just how to use data, but why data quality matters to the organization's success. Second, it requires aligning incentives so that maintaining good data practices becomes part of how people are evaluated and rewarded. Third, it necessitates creating clear ownership and accountability structures that define who is responsible for different aspects of the data lifecycle. Most importantly, this approach requires breaking down the artificial divide between data people and business people. In high-performing organizations, data isn't the domain of a specialized team. It's a shared resource that everyone contributes to and benefits from. They create environments where marketing specialists understand how their data entry practices affect analytics, where sales representatives see the connection between CRM accuracy and customer insights, and where executives model data-driven decision-making. The shared responsibility for data that high-performing organizations demonstrate doesn't happen by accident. It's cultivated intentionally after a clear-eyed assessment of the current state. When teams consistently define basic terms differently or treat data quality as "its problem," these aren't just minor inconveniences, they're diagnostic indicators of a deeper cultural misalignment that must be addressed before any technical solution can succeed. Before investing in expensive data infrastructure or launching ambitious analytics initiatives, organizations need to understand their cultural readiness. This assessment isn't optional, it's a critical first step that determines whether your technical investments will thrive or wither. Yet, many companies skip this evaluation entirely, rushing to implement solutions without understanding if their culture will support or sabotage these efforts. The challenge lies in measuring something as nebulous as culture in relation to data practices. Unlike technical metrics that can be precisely quantified, cultural elements resist simple measurement. How do you objectively evaluate the collective attitudes, behaviors, and unspoken assumptions that guide how people interact with data? This intangibility often leads organizations to avoid cultural assessment altogether, focusing instead on more concrete technical aspects. This avoidance is a mistake. While culture may be difficult to measure, it's not impossible. By examining specific behavioral patterns and organizational structures, you can accurately diagnose your organization's data culture maturity. These patterns serve as visible manifestations of underlying cultural values and assumptions. One of the most revealing indicators is how consistently terms are defined across your organization. In companies with healthy data cultures, there's general agreement on what key metrics mean. For instance, does active customer mean the same thing to your marketing, sales, and customer service departments? If these teams operate with different definitions, they're essentially speaking different languages, making meaningful data integration nearly impossible. Another warning sign appears when you observe how departments respond to data governance initiatives. In organizations with poor data cultures, these initiatives are often viewed as bureaucratic impositions rather than valuable safeguards. Listen carefully to how teams talk about data governance. Do they see it as an unnecessary hurdle that slows them down, or do they recognize it as essential infrastructure that enables reliable insights? Data hoarding represents another red flag. When departments jealously guard their data sets, refusing to share with others, they're demonstrating a fundamental misunderstanding of data's collaborative value. This territorial behavior stems from a culture where information is viewed as a source of power rather than a collective resource. You might notice this when teams use phrases like "our data" instead of the organization's data, or when they create convoluted approval processes for accessing information. Perhaps the most telling indicator is when teams consistently frame data quality as someone else's responsibility. In organizations with mature data cultures, everyone understands their role in maintaining data integrity. When you hear marketing specialists dismiss data entry standards as "its problem," or sales representatives claim they're too busy to properly log customer information, you're witnessing a culture that fundamentally misunderstands how data value is created. To systematically assess these patterns across your organization, you need a structured framework. Begin by evaluating data literacy levels across different departments. Not just technical skills, but conceptual understanding of how data flows through the organization. Does your marketing team understand how their campaign categorization affects downstream analytics? Do sales representatives recognize how CRM data entry practices impact customer insights? These literacy gaps often explain why certain teams resist data initiatives or produce poor quality information. This assessment shouldn't be limited to frontline employees. Leadership behavior provides particularly valuable diagnostic information. There's often a stark contrast between stated commitments to data-driven decision-making and actual leadership practices. Pay attention to how executives make decisions in pressure situations. Do they default to gut instinct when deadlines loom, or do they still demand data-backed recommendations? Watch what they prioritize during resource allocation discussions. Are data quality initiatives consistently funded, or are they the first to be cut when budgets tighten? The gap between what leaders say and what they do creates powerful signals throughout the organization. If executives request data-driven presentations but then make decisions based on anecdotes, they're teaching their teams that data analysis is merely a checkbox exercise, not a genuine decision-making tool. These contradictions reveal the true cultural values regardless of official statements. To move beyond subjective impressions, consider implementing a simple diagnostic questionnaire that surfaces cultural barriers to data success. This doesn't need to be complex. Even basic questions can reveal significant insights when asked consistently across departments. Questions might include: who do you believe is responsible for ensuring data quality in your department? Or how confident are you in the accuracy of reports you receive from other teams? Or what happens when someone identifies a data quality issue in your area? The patterns in these responses will reveal your organization's cultural maturity level far more accurately than technical assessments alone. You might discover that while your data infrastructure is sophisticated, fundamental cultural barriers prevent teams from trusting or effectively using the outputs. This questionnaire approach can be particularly revealing when comparing responses across organizational levels. Senior leaders often have dramatically different perceptions of data culture than frontline employees. When executives believe the organization highly values data, while operational staff report that data quality is routinely compromised to meet deadlines, this disconnect itself becomes valuable diagnostic information. Once you've gathered these insights, look for specific behavioral indicators that might not be immediately obvious. For instance, low participation in data governance discussions often signals cultural resistance. When data quality meetings are consistently deprioritized or attended only by technical staff, this indicates that the broader organization doesn't view data governance as part of their responsibility. Similarly, minimal investment in data literacy training suggests that an organization values technical solutions over human capability. Organizations with mature data cultures recognize that tools are only as effective as the people using them, and they invest accordingly in developing data literacy across all departments. Even the way teams respond to data quality issues provides diagnostic information. In immature data cultures, quality problems typically trigger blame and defensiveness. In contrast, mature organizations treat these incidents as learning opportunities, focusing on system improvements rather than individual fault. With these assessments complete, you can categorize your organization's data culture maturity on a spectrum. At the lowest level, organizations treat data as a necessary evil, collecting it reluctantly to satisfy regulatory requirements or basic operational needs. At intermediate levels, they might recognize data's potential value, but struggle with consistent practices. At the highest level of maturity, organizations truly integrate data into their decision-making DNA, with shared responsibility and consistent practices across all departments. Understanding where your organization falls on this spectrum allows you to develop targeted improvement strategies rather than generic best practices. If your assessment reveals that teams view data governance as bureaucratic overhead, your approach will differ significantly from situations where the primary issue is inconsistent definitions across departments. This is precisely why a thorough cultural assessment must precede technical implementations. Without this understanding, organizations risk investing in solutions that don't address their true barriers to data success. A company suffering from data hoarding won't solve that problem with better analytics tools. They need cultural interventions that change how teams think about information sharing. I've developed a practical assessment framework that you can use to measure your organization's current data culture maturity. This isn't just theoretical, it's a concrete tool you can implement next week to identify your specific cultural gaps. The framework evaluates 5 key dimensions: leadership alignment, cross-functional collaboration, data literacy, governance attitudes, and accountability structures. By scoring your organization across these dimensions, you'll generate a comprehensive profile of your current data culture and identify precisely where interventions will have the greatest impact. Even with the most thorough assessment of your organization's data culture, your transformation efforts will collapse if your technical and business teams can't understand each other. Have you ever sat through a meeting where data analysts enthusiastically present complex findings while marketing executives stare blankly at their screens? This communication divide isn't just frustrating, it's silently sabotaging your data initiatives in ways most organizations never diagnose. The language barrier between technical and business teams runs deeper than vocabulary. What we're facing is a fundamental disconnect in how these groups perceive, discuss, and value data. When your data scientists describe data normalization with excitement, your sales leaders aren't just confused by the terminology. They're wondering why anyone would spend time on something that doesn't immediately help them close more deals. These communication gaps create more than momentary confusion, they breed lasting mistrust. When technical teams use specialized language that business stakeholders don't understand, it creates an unconscious perception that the technical team is either deliberately obscuring information or doesn't value making their work accessible. Simultaneously, when business teams dismiss technical concerns without understanding their importance, data professionals feel undervalued and frustrated that their expertise is being ignored. Consider what happens in a typical cross-departmental data meeting. The data team might spend 30 minutes explaining the technical intricacies of their latest machine learning model, complete with discussions of feature engineering and hyperparameter tuning. Meanwhile, the marketing team is simply waiting for someone to tell them if this will help improve customer conversion rates. Both sides leave the meeting dissatisfied. The data team feels their technical excellence wasn't appreciated, while the marketing team believes their time was wasted on irrelevant details. These misalignments extend beyond meetings into the entire data workflow. Technical teams instinctively focus on aspects like statistical accuracy, system performance, and technical elegance. Their natural tendency is to perfect the methodology, ensuring the data analysis is technically sound and follows best practices. Business teams, on the other hand, prioritize practical applications. How quickly can we implement this? How will it affect our quarterly goals? What's the return on investment? Without a bridge between these perspectives, organizations end up with technically impressive solutions that fail to deliver business value or superficial analyses that don't hold up to scrutiny. The consequences of miscommunication manifest in predictable patterns. In one common scenario, a data scientist might present a complex predictive model with 87% accuracy. The business leader, unfamiliar with model evaluation metrics, assumes this means the predictions will be wrong 13% of the time and decides the model isn't reliable enough to use for decision making. The data scientist never clarifies that, in this particular context, 87% accuracy actually represents an exceptional result that could dramatically improve business outcomes compared to current methods. Another frequent misunderstanding occurs around data ownership. When technical terms like data stewardship and metadata management dominate governance discussions, business users often interpret these concepts as more work for me rather than understanding how these practices directly benefit their own decision making. The result: low adoption of crucial data quality practices because the benefits weren't communicated in business relevant terms. So, how do we bridge this divide? The solution starts with creating what I call translation layers between technical and business teams. This isn't just about simplifying language, it's about fundamentally reframing technical concepts in business relevant terms. First, data professionals need to adopt empathy-based communication. This means approaching every interaction by first understanding what matters to your audience. Before explaining a data model to marketing executives, ask yourself, what decisions are they trying to make? What metrics drive their performance evaluations? How will this analysis impact their day-to-day work? When you frame technical information through this lens, you transform abstract concepts into relevant insights. For example, instead of describing a customer segmentation algorithm in technical terms, you might say, this approach identifies the 20% of customers who generate 80% of our repeat business, allowing us to create tailored marketing campaigns that could increase retention by up to 15%. Notice how this explanation connects directly to business outcomes without sacrificing accuracy. Second, develop a shared vocabulary that serves as a bridge between technical and business concepts. This isn't about creating a comprehensive glossary, it's about establishing consistent, mutually understood terms for the most important data concepts in your organization. Start by identifying the top 10-15 data terms that frequently cause confusion, then collaboratively define them in ways that satisfy both technical accuracy and business relevance. For example, rather than using technical jargon like data lineage, you might establish data journey mapping as a shared term, defined as tracking how our customer information moves through the organization to ensure we make decisions based on the most accurate and up-to-date information. This maintains the essential concept while making it accessible to everyone. Third, use analogies and storytelling to make complex data concepts tangible. When explaining data quality to non-technical stakeholders, compare it to inventory management in a retail store. Just as you wouldn't make purchasing decisions based on an inventory count you know is wrong, we shouldn't make business decisions based on data we know has quality issues. These connections to familiar business concepts create immediate understanding in ways that technical explanations cannot. Fourth, implement structured problem definition sessions that bring technical and business teams together at the start of any data initiative. These sessions should follow a framework that explicitly addresses both technical feasibility and business value. Before diving into solution design, ensure everyone agrees on what business problem are we solving, how will we measure success in business terms, what constraints must our solution work within. This approach prevents the common scenario where data teams build technically impressive solutions that don't address the actual business need. It also ensures business teams understand technical limitations before setting unrealistic expectations. Perhaps most importantly, organizations need to create formal translation roles that bridge the technical business divide. These individuals, sometimes called analytics translators or data product managers, have enough technical knowledge to understand data science concepts, but remain firmly grounded in business applications. These translators perform several critical functions. They help business leaders articulate their needs in ways data teams can effectively address. They help data professionals communicate their insights in business relevant terms, and they facilitate ongoing collaboration throughout data projects. Importantly, they're accountable for ensuring both sides remain aligned on objectives and outcomes. Financial services organizations have been particularly successful with this translation layer approach. One global bank created a network of business intelligence partners embedded within business units, but connected to the central data team. These partners meet weekly with business leaders to understand their decision-making needs, then work with data teams to develop analytics that directly address those needs. The result? A 40% increase in the adoption of data products and a dramatic reduction in shadow analytics, where business units create their own analyses because they don't trust the central data team. Healthcare organizations have found similar success using clinical informatics specialists who translate between data teams and medical staff. These specialists understand both clinical workflows and data systems, allowing them to ensure that data initiatives actually improve patient care rather than just generating interesting statistics. Beyond formal roles, organizations should also invest in experiential learning opportunities that help technical and business teams understand each other's worlds. This might include having data scientists shadow sales calls or business leaders participating in data quality workshops. These experiences build empathy far more effectively than any training program could. The key insight across all these approaches is recognizing that effective data communication isn't about dumbing down technical concepts. It's about translating them into the frameworks and priorities that drive business decisions. When technical teams understand how their work connects to business outcomes, and when business teams appreciate the value of technical excellence, true collaboration becomes possible. Translation roles may connect your teams, but who's truly setting the data culture tone from the top? While executives might publicly champion data initiatives, their daily decision-making practices often tell a completely different story, one that your entire organization is carefully observing. When the CEO who mandated a data-first approach routinely makes snap judgments based on intuition alone, employees quickly learn what the organization truly values, regardless of what's written in the mission statement. This leadership contradiction creates a silent credibility crisis that undermines data strategies from the executive level downward. Even with substantial financial investment, sophisticated tools, and talented technical teams, data transformations frequently collapse under the weight of this leadership disconnect. The signature on the budget approval means little if it's not backed by consistent leadership behaviors that demonstrate genuine commitment to data-driven decision-making. Looking beyond surface-level support reveals why leadership actions matter so profoundly in data transformation. When executives request thorough data analysis only to disregard it in favor of their instincts, they're not just making an isolated decision, they're establishing an organizational norm. These moments of contradiction send powerful signals about what really matters at decision time. Every instance of a leader calling for a quick gut check after weeks of meticulous data preparation reinforces that data is merely window dressing for decisions that will ultimately be made through traditional means. The challenge runs deeper than most organizations recognize. Leaders must do more than allocate resources toward data initiatives. They must fundamentally alter how they approach decisions at all levels. This requires acknowledging uncomfortable truths about their own decision-making habits and recognizing how these habits shape organizational culture through a powerful trickle-down effect. When leadership consistently demonstrates that data inputs are optional or secondary considerations, these attitudes permeate throughout the entire company structure. Consider what happens when a marketing director requests comprehensive campaign performance data, but then dismisses negative findings with, "I know our audience better than any algorithm." This dismissal doesn't just affect that single campaign decision, it signals to the entire marketing team that data is subservient to intuition. Similarly, when operations executives override inventory optimization recommendations because that's not how we've always handled seasonal demand, they effectively undermine months of analytical work and discourage future data-driven approaches. The most damaging leadership behaviors often occur in mundane, everyday interactions rather than formal strategy sessions. When executives routinely make statements like, "I don't need to see the numbers, I already know what we should do," they create an environment where data work is perceived as a bureaucratic checkbox rather than a valuable input. These small moments accumulate over time, gradually eroding data credibility across the organization until even the most sophisticated analytics initiatives struggle to gain traction. For data transformations to succeed, leadership must radically rethink their role beyond mere budget approval and public endorsement. Successful data-driven leaders recognize that they must actively model the behaviors they want to see throughout the organization. This modeling goes far beyond words. It requires consistent actions that demonstrate data's central role in decision processes. Leaders must be willing to visibly change course when data contradicts their initial assumptions, creating powerful examples that validate analytical approaches. The most effective leaders establish clear frameworks for balancing data insights with their professional judgment. Rather than positioning these as competing forces, they create decision processes that integrate both elements transparently. When presenting decisions that incorporate both data and experience, these leaders explicitly articulate which factors came from quantitative analysis and which elements reflect qualitative judgment. This transparency demystifies the decision process while still respecting the value of leadership wisdom. Successful leaders in data transformations balance data-driven decisions with their experience by ensuring that they communicate the business value of data initiatives and not just the technical aspects, notes one data transformation expert. They also foster an environment where data is seen as a strategic asset rather than just a technical tool. This balanced approach prevents the false dichotomy that often emerges between data-driven and experience-driven decisions, instead creating integrated thinking that leverages both sources of insight. Modeling good data behaviors requires specific practices that leaders can adopt immediately. First and foremost is transparency in decision processes, clearly articulating what information was considered, what questions were asked, and how conclusions were reached. When leaders make their analytical approach visible, they normalize data-informed thinking throughout the organization. This transparency also includes acknowledging data limitations and areas of uncertainty rather than presenting false precision. Effective data leaders also actively seek feedback about data quality and demonstrate genuine curiosity about analytical findings. When executives ask thoughtful questions about methodology, assumptions, and alternative interpretations, they signal that rigorous analysis matters. Conversely, when they merely look for data points that confirm pre-existing views, they undermine analytical integrity. The questions leaders ask often prove more influential than the statements they make. Creating psychological safety around data discussions represents another crucial leadership behavior. When team members feel comfortable highlighting data quality issues or challenging interpretations without fear of repercussion, the entire analytical process improves. Leaders foster this safety by publicly acknowledging their own analytical mistakes and celebrating instances where data revealed unexpected insights that changed their thinking. To model these behaviors consistently, organizations benefit from establishing formal leadership accountability frameworks for data decisions. These frameworks create structured opportunities to evaluate whether executive actions align with stated data commitments. A well-designed accountability system might include regular reviews where leaders explain significant decisions and their analytical underpinnings, creating natural incentives for data-informed approaches. These accountability mechanisms work best when they connect directly to existing business processes rather than existing as separate data governance activities. For example, quarterly business reviews might include specific discussion of how key decisions incorporated data inputs, creating natural integration between business performance and data utilization. This integration prevents data accountability from becoming a siloed exercise disconnected from core operations. Leaders can further strengthen accountability by involving multiple perspectives in decision reviews. When technical and business stakeholders jointly evaluate how effectively leadership used available data, they create valuable dialogue that improves future approaches. These multi-perspective reviews also help identify specific areas where leaders might benefit from additional data literacy support or analytical tools that better match their decision-making contexts. Beyond accountability structures, successful organizations often develop capability building approaches specifically tailored for leadership teams. These programs differ substantially from general data literacy initiatives, focusing on executive-specific skills like interpreting confidence intervals, understanding model limitations, and effectively questioning analytical recommendations. By targeting these leadership-specific capabilities, organizations address a critical gap that often undermines data transformation efforts. The most sophisticated organizations systematically track leadership data behaviors over time, creating measurable improvement targets. These metrics might include the percentage of key decisions that incorporated structured data analysis, frequency of data quality discussions in executive meetings, or consistency between stated analytical principles and actual decision approaches. By measuring these behaviors, organizations create visibility and momentum around leadership's data transformation journey. What separates truly exceptional data-driven executives is their ability to ask better questions that drive data quality and insight generation. Rather than starting with requests for specific reports or metrics, these leaders begin with clear articulation of the business problems they're trying to solve. This problem-first approach creates context that helps analytical teams deliver genuinely useful insights rather than producing data for data's sake. Exceptional data leaders also recognize that the quality of their questions directly influences the quality of resulting analysis. They avoid vague requests like, "Give me everything on customer behavior," in favor of specific inquiries like, "Which customer behaviors most strongly predict retention?" This specificity not only produces more valuable insights, but also creates natural alignment between analytical work and business priorities. The questions these leaders ask extend beyond immediate business problems to include data quality and methodology considerations. By routinely asking, "How confident are we in this data?" or "What alternative interpretations should we consider?" they create dialogue that improves analytical rigor. These question patterns establish norms that gradually transform how the entire organization approaches data-informed decisions. These question patterns transform how organizations approach decisions, but they assume one critical factor, that people can actually understand the data in front of them. While nearly all businesses recognize data as vital to growth, fewer than a third have successfully built data literacy beyond their technical teams. This capability gap silently undermines even well-designed data initiatives, creating a fundamental disconnect between your data ambitions and organizational reality. Think about it. What happens when your marketing team can't distinguish correlation from causation? Or when sales managers struggle to interpret basic dashboards despite your significant technology investments? The hard truth isn't that teams resist data culture, it's that many lack the fundamental ability to participate in it meaningfully. This literacy gap creates a troubling scenario where your organization operates at two speeds. Technical teams race ahead with sophisticated analyses while everyone else is left trying to interpret complex insights with elementary level data skills. No wonder so many data transformations stall despite leadership commitment and technological investment. The traditional approach to this problem has been fundamentally flawed. Most organizations treat data literacy as an all or nothing proposition, either focusing exclusively on technical specialists or attempting to transform everyone into amateur data scientists overnight. Both strategies inevitably fail. Technical heavy training programs overwhelm non-specialists with abstract concepts, disconnected from their daily responsibilities. I've seen countless organizations invest in comprehensive data education initiatives that employees actively avoid because the content feels irrelevant to their roles. When training doesn't directly connect to someone's job performance metrics or daily challenges, engagement plummets and retention approaches zero. The key insight from organizations that successfully build organization-wide data literacy is that programs must be tailored to different roles within the organization. One healthcare network found remarkable success by creating separate learning paths for clinical staff, administrators, and executives, each focusing on the specific data concepts most relevant to their decision-making needs. This tailored approach acknowledges that the marketing director doesn't need the same data skills as a data engineer. Instead, they need focused capabilities that directly enhance their primary responsibilities. For marketing, this might mean understanding attribution modeling or segment analysis. For sales, it could focus on pipeline analytics and forecasting reliability. Building truly effective data literacy requires making complex concepts accessible through relevant practical applications. As Katie Gublar emphasizes, it's about telling them their story and telling them what's going to be different for them. This personalization creates immediate buy-in because participants see direct value rather than abstract technical concepts. Organizations that excel at this transformation create supportive environments where employees feel comfortable asking questions about data. This psychological safety accelerates learning and prevents the common scenario where employees nod along in meetings while secretly not understanding the data being presented. When people feel safe acknowledging knowledge gaps, learning accelerates dramatically. A particularly effective technique involves identifying and developing data champions within non-technical departments. These individuals serve as bridges between technical teams and their colleagues, translating complex concepts into department-specific applications. Unlike formal training, these embedded advocates provide contextual, just-in-time learning that directly addresses immediate business challenges. A manufacturing company implemented this approach by identifying operations team members with natural curiosity about measurement and analysis. After providing specialized training, these champions became internal consultants who helped colleagues apply data concepts to improve production efficiency. Within 6 months, data-informed decisions became normalized throughout operations, not because everyone became data experts, but because they had trusted translators within their immediate team. Progressive learning paths represent another critical component of successful literacy programs. Rather than overwhelming employees with comprehensive training, these paths introduce concepts iteratively, building confidence through immediate application and visible results. When employees experience quick wins, their motivation to develop more sophisticated data skills naturally increases. A retail organization created a 3-tiered data literacy curriculum that began with basic data interpretation, advanced to analytical thinking, and culminated in experimental design for interested employees. This gradual progression ensured participants mastered foundational concepts before attempting more complex applications, reducing frustration and increasing engagement throughout the process. The most effective progressive learning also connects data literacy directly to individual job performance and outcomes. When employees see how specific data skills improve their personal metrics, whether sales performance, project delivery, or customer satisfaction, adoption accelerates dramatically. This connection transforms data literacy from an abstract corporate initiative into a practical tool for individual success. For example, a financial services firm linked data literacy modules directly to specific performance goals in each department. Customer service representatives learned how to interpret satisfaction metrics to improve their ratings. Loan officers discovered how to analyze approval patterns to increase their conversion rates. This direct connection between learning and performance created self-motivated engagement with data concepts. Organizations should also recognize that data literacy isn't just about technical skills. It requires building a new mindset around how decisions are made. The most successful programs balance technical training with critical thinking about data's limitations and appropriate applications. Employees need to understand not just how to interpret data, but when data should inform different types of decisions. This balanced approach acknowledges that human judgment remains essential, even in data-driven organizations. The goal isn't to replace experience with algorithms, but to enhance decision quality by combining human expertise with data insights. Some of the most valuable training modules focus on recognizing when to trust data versus when to question its limitations. For sustainable transformation, data literacy must be reinforced through daily practices rather than isolated training events. Organizations that successfully build this capability integrate learning directly into workflows through tools like annotated dashboards that explain metrics, decision frameworks that prompt data consideration, and regular team discussions about analytical approaches to common challenges. A comprehensive data literacy framework should address 4 dimensions: technical skills, how to analyze data; critical thinking, how to interpret data; communication, how to share insights; and application, how to use data in decisions. Each role requires different emphasis across these dimensions based on their primary responsibilities and existing capabilities. For executives, training might emphasize critical evaluation of analyses and translating insights into strategic decisions. For frontline managers, the focus might be practical applications of departmental metrics and performance indicators. For operational staff, training could concentrate on data quality practices and basic interpretation of team dashboards. The framework should also include clear assessment mechanisms to measure progress and identify gaps. These assessments shouldn't just test technical knowledge, but evaluate how effectively employees apply data concepts to actual business scenarios. This approach measures genuine literacy rather than memorization of concepts. Building this comprehensive capability requires significant investment, but organizations with mature data literacy report dramatic improvements in decision quality, operational efficiency, and cross-functional collaboration. When technical and non-technical teams share a common data language, the entire organization accelerates. Even with a shared data language throughout your organization, you might be quietly sabotaging your own data quality efforts through a fundamental misalignment most leaders never consider: your incentive structures. What happens when the way you handle data errors actually trains your team to hide problems rather than solve them? The shared vocabulary we've been discussing creates a foundation, but equally important is how your organization motivates people to care about data quality in the first place. After all, humans respond to incentives, and the incentives around data maintenance significantly impact behavior. Let's examine a scenario that plays out in organizations everywhere. A customer service representative discovers a pattern of incorrect shipping addresses in the company database. Reporting this issue would improve delivery success rates and customer satisfaction. However, in many organizations, this discovery triggers a chain of events: an incident report, root cause analysis, and potentially disciplinary action for whoever input the incorrect data. The incentive: stay quiet about data problems or risk being blamed. This punitive approach creates a chilling effect. When people fear being held responsible for data errors, they develop avoidance behaviors rather than improvement mindsets. I've observed teams who intentionally keep secondary shadow spreadsheets rather than correct official systems because the risk of being wrong in the corporate database feels too high. The result is worse data throughout the organization, not better. Think about your own organization for a moment. When someone identifies a data quality issue, is your first response to ask, who caused this? Or how can we fix this? The difference is subtle but profound. Organizations that immediately jump to blame create environments where employees become data avoidant, while those that focus on improvement foster data champions. This fear-based approach manifests in practical ways that undermine data initiatives. Teams become reluctant to standardize definitions or adopt new data governance practices when they perceive these changes as new ways to be evaluated and potentially punished. The very tools designed to improve data quality become weapons in organizational politics. What's particularly interesting is how this dynamic plays out with repetitive data maintenance tasks, the unglamorous but critical work of keeping information accurate over time. Research indicates that humans respond differently to various types of incentives around these repetitive tasks. While fear of punishment might create short-term compliance, it rarely generates the sustained attention to detail that quality data requires. Consider the contrast between these approaches. In one manufacturing company, the quality assurance team implemented strict penalties for production errors in data entry. The result? A dramatic decrease in reported errors, not because errors weren't happening, but because workers developed clever workarounds to avoid detection. Meanwhile, a similar company implemented a positive reinforcement system that celebrated teams achieving high data accuracy with recognition and small rewards. They saw a 40% improvement in actual data quality because employees were motivated to find and fix errors rather than hide them. The disconnect often extends to performance evaluations as well. In many organizations, data quality responsibilities remain invisible in formal performance metrics. When good data maintenance doesn't factor into evaluations, employees naturally prioritize the work that does affect their career progression. This creates a perverse incentive where maintaining high quality data becomes an extra task rather than an essential part of the job. A marketing director I worked with shared a telling example. Her team's customer segmentation data had degraded significantly over a year, making targeted campaigns increasingly ineffective. The cause? None of her team members had data quality included in their performance objectives, while campaign launch dates were prominent success metrics. The team consistently chose to launch campaigns on schedule with flawed data rather than delay to fix underlying data issues. Their incentives perfectly predicted their behavior. This misalignment extends beyond individual performance to departmental metrics as well. When departments are measured only on their specific functional outcomes without consideration for data quality contributions, cross-functional data becomes a tragedy of the commons. Everyone benefits from good data, but no one is specifically rewarded for maintaining it. So, how do we create better incentive structures that naturally motivate teams to maintain high data quality? The key lies in connecting data quality directly to business outcomes people already care about. First, make the impact of poor data quality visible and concrete. When data errors remain abstract, they're easy to deprioritize. Organizations that successfully motivate data quality excellence create clear connections between data accuracy and outcomes that matter to specific teams. For sales teams, demonstrate how cleaner prospect data leads to higher conversion rates. For operations teams, show how accurate inventory data reduces stockouts and excess inventory costs. A retail organization implemented this approach by developing dashboards that displayed the cost of bad data for each department, showing exactly how much money was wasted due to returns from incorrect product descriptions, inventory adjustments from counting errors, and customer service calls from shipping mistakes. When teams could see the direct financial impact of data quality on their own department's performance, behavior changed dramatically. Beyond visibility, effective organizations integrate data quality directly into existing performance frameworks rather than treating it as a separate initiative. This doesn't necessarily mean adding complex new metrics. Often, it simply requires acknowledging data quality's role in achieving existing goals. For example, a customer satisfaction target might include a component that recognizes the impact of data accuracy on the customer experience. Some organizations have found success with recognition programs that celebrate data quality improvements. These programs work best when they focus on process improvements rather than individual performance, reinforcing that data quality is a team effort. Public recognition of teams that identify and address systemic data issues encourages others to follow suit. A healthcare system implemented monthly data quality spotlights where departments that had improved their patient data completeness received organization-wide recognition. The program included sharing the specific process changes that led to the improvement, creating an environment where successful practices spread organically. Another powerful approach is creating feedback loops that make the benefits of good data immediately visible to those maintaining it. When people can see how their data maintenance efforts improve their own work experience, motivation becomes intrinsic rather than requiring external rewards or punishments. A financial services company redesigned their client onboarding process to show relationship managers exactly how complete client profiles led to faster approval rates and fewer follow-up requests. This immediate positive feedback loop created natural motivation to collect accurate data from the start. For data maintenance tasks that are genuinely tedious but necessary, some organizations have successfully implemented gamification elements. Leaderboards, achievement badges, or friendly competition between teams can make routine data quality checks more engaging. These approaches work best when they're designed to be playful rather than adding competitive pressure. The most sophisticated organizations go further, creating frameworks that connect data quality to career advancement opportunities. Data stewardship roles with formal recognition and development pathways signal that data quality responsibilities are valued skills worth developing, not just administrative burdens to endure. A technology company created a data champion certification program that included training, mentorship, and formal recognition. Employees who completed the program received preference for certain project assignments and leadership opportunities, creating a tangible career benefit to developing data quality expertise. Perhaps most importantly, organizations with healthy data quality incentives celebrate the identification of data problems rather than punishing them. They recognize that finding issues is the first step to improvement and create safety for employees to surface problems without fear of repercussion. When incentives align properly, organizations develop what some call a culture of data accountability and pride. Employees take ownership of their data responsibilities not because they fear punishment, but because they understand the value their data contributions create and take professional pride in maintaining high standards. Data accountability within teams is just the beginning. The real magic happens when departments stop treating data as territory to defend and start viewing it as a shared asset to develop together. Companies achieving breakthrough results aren't just changing attitudes, they're implementing specific collaboration models that challenge traditional organizational boundaries. Traditional project structures often create artificial walls between data experts and business teams. It's a familiar scene. The business team submits requirements, the data team builds solutions in isolation. And then everyone wonders why the final product doesn't quite solve the actual problem. This handoff approach creates a fundamental disconnect that undermines even the most well-intentioned data initiatives. What's needed instead are structured collaboration approaches that integrate technical expertise with business knowledge throughout the entire data lifecycle. These approaches recognize that data value emerges from the continuous interplay between those who understand the technical dimensions of data and those who understand its business applications. The embedded analyst model represents one of the most effective collaboration structures for bridging departmental boundaries. Unlike centralized data teams that operate as separate entities, embedded analysts work directly within business units. This proximity creates daily interactions that deepen mutual understanding of both technical constraints and business needs. A financial services company transformed their customer analytics by embedding data scientists within their product teams rather than keeping them in a separate analytics department. The embedded scientists gained first-hand exposure to customer pain points, while product managers developed a more sophisticated understanding of what the data could reveal. This arrangement led to analytics solutions that directly addressed business priorities rather than interesting but ultimately unused insights. Cross-functional data product teams represent another powerful collaboration model. These teams assemble specialists from different departments around specific data assets, treating these assets as products with clear users and use cases rather than just information repositories. A healthcare organization implemented this approach by forming cross-functional teams around key patient data streams. Each team included clinical staff, IT specialists, data analysts, and administrators with clear ownership of specific data domains. By treating patient journey data as a product rather than a byproduct of clinical operations, they developed dashboards and workflows that dramatically improved care coordination while reducing documentation burden. The success of these collaboration models hinges on establishing joint ownership structures. When both technical teams and business units share accountability for data initiatives, the traditional finger pointing that plagues many projects, the data team didn't build what we needed, or the business team didn't define clear requirements, gives way to shared problem solving. Joint ownership means creating formal mechanisms where decisions about data priorities, quality standards, and success metrics are made collaboratively rather than imposed by one group on another. This often involves establishing data domain councils with representation from both technical and business stakeholders who collectively govern specific data domains. A manufacturing company implemented a joint ownership framework by creating cross-functional data stewardship teams for each major data domain. Each team included both technical data experts and business representatives who collectively established data quality standards, prioritized improvements, and developed governance policies. This structure created natural alignment between technical capabilities and business priorities, resulting in data initiatives that delivered measurable operational improvements. Beyond organizational structures, successful collaboration requires thoughtfully designed interaction opportunities. The most effective organizations create structured collaborative sessions that generate insights rather than reinforcing existing divisions. These sessions follow specific formats designed to overcome common barriers to productive cross-functional work. For instance, insight generation workshops bring together technical and business teams to explore specific business challenges through a data lens. Rather than starting with technical capabilities, here's what our data can do. These sessions begin with business outcomes. What decisions would transform our customer experience? And work backward to identify relevant data approaches. A retail organization conducts quarterly insight labs where merchandising teams and data analysts collaborate to identify untapped opportunities in customer data. The sessions follow a structured format that begins with business challenges, explores available data assets, and concludes with prioritized analytics initiatives. By focusing on joint problem solving rather than data handoffs, these sessions consistently generate high-impact initiatives that both teams feel invested in. Another effective approach involves creating a shop front for data within the organization, a visible access point where employees across departments can discover available data products and understand their value. This approach transforms data from an abstract technical asset to a tangible resource that non-technical employees can easily engage with. a telecommunications company established a digital data marketplace where employees could browse available data sets, analytics tools, and dashboards with clear descriptions of their business applications. This marketplace included use case examples, contact information for relevant experts, and simple request processes. By making data resources visible and accessible, they dramatically increased cross-departmental data utilization. Regular feedback loops between data teams and business units represent another critical collaboration element. Rather than the traditional project approach, where requirements are gathered once at the beginning, successful organizations implement continuous feedback mechanisms that allow data products to evolve based on real user experiences. A technology company implemented biweekly data product reviews where business users provided structured feedback on analytics, dashboards, and data tools. These reviews followed a consistent format focused on identifying both successful applications and missed opportunities. The regular feedback cycle allowed the data team to continuously refine their offerings based on actual usage patterns rather than assumptions about user needs. Perhaps most important is developing a data product mindset throughout the organization. This means shifting from viewing data as a byproduct of business processes to seeing it as a product with clear ownership, usability requirements, and continuous improvement cycles. When both technical and business teams adopt this mindset, collaboration becomes natural rather than forced. A financial services organization transformed their approach to reporting by adopting a product mindset for all analytics outputs. Each report and dashboard had a designated product owner responsible for understanding user needs, a clear user experience design process, and regular usage measurement. This approach ensured that data outputs remained aligned with evolving business requirements rather than becoming static reports that gradually lost relevance. To implement these collaboration approaches effectively, organizations need a practical framework they can adapt to their specific context. The data collaboration canvas provides exactly this, a structured approach organizations can implement immediately to improve cross-departmental data initiatives. The canvas guides teams through 5 key elements: shared objective definition, collaboration structure selection, joint accountability mechanisms, interaction design, and success measurement. For each element, it provides practical options and implementation considerations based on organizational context. For shared objective definition, the canvas helps diverse stakeholders articulate what success looks like from both technical and business perspectives, ensuring alignment before work begins. For collaboration structure, it guides teams in selecting the appropriate model, embedded analysts, cross-functional product teams, or domain councils, based on their specific challenges and organizational culture. The joint accountability section helps establish clear responsibilities across departmental boundaries, while the interaction design component provides templates for structured collaborative sessions. Finally, the success measurement section ensures that both technical and business metrics are tracked to provide a balanced view of initiative outcomes. By working through this canvas at the outset of data initiatives, organizations create the conditions for productive collaboration rather than hoping it emerges organically. Teams that use this approach report significantly higher satisfaction with cross-functional data work and more sustainable implementation of insights. The sustainable implementation of insights is only half the battle. What happens 6 months later when enthusiasm fades and old habits creep back in? While collaborative frameworks build the foundation for success, even the most brilliant data initiatives face a silent threat that erodes progress over time. Organizations frequently experience a troubling yo-yo effect in data quality, where impressive initial improvements are followed by gradual, costly declines that erase hard-won progress. This cycle is frustratingly common and devastatingly expensive. After the launch celebration ends and the implementation team disperses, the maintenance phase begins, and this is where most data initiatives quietly unravel. The temporary boost in attention and resources during the project phase creates an artificial environment that rarely translates to long-term sustainability. What's particularly concerning is how this cycle creates what experts call data debt, a concept similar to technical debt in software development. Data debt accumulates when organizations implement quick fixes rather than sustainable solutions, prioritizing short-term results over long-term viability. Each time a data quality issue is addressed with a temporary patch rather than a systemic fix, the organization adds to its data debt. Over time, this debt compounds, making it increasingly difficult and expensive to maintain data quality standards. Consider what happens in a typical organization after a successful data cleanup initiative. For the first few months, everyone diligently follows the new protocols. Data stewards check for inconsistencies, teams report issues promptly, and governance meetings are well attended. 6 months later, however, priorities shift, vigilance wanes, and shortcuts start to appear. By month 12, many organizations find themselves facing the same data quality issues they thought they'd solved, except now with added cynicism about another failed data project. The challenge isn't limited to maintaining enthusiasm. Organizations consistently underestimate the ongoing volume of effort required to deliver and sustain a data transformation. Without adequate investment in sustaining mechanisms like data governance and quality monitoring, even the most promising initiatives falter. This miscalculation leads to insufficient resource allocation for the maintenance phase, creating a predictable path to deterioration. So what separates organizations that maintain high-quality data year after year from those trapped in endless cycles of data cleanup projects and emergency fixes? The answer lies in building sustainable data practices that acknowledge both technical and human realities. Organizations that successfully maintain high data quality over the long term share several key characteristics. First, they focus on proactive rather than reactive data management. Rather than waiting for problems to emerge and then deploying resources to fix them, these organizations build processes that prevent issues from developing in the first place. A pharmaceutical company implemented an automated data quality monitoring system that continuously checks new data entries against established rules and patterns. When potential issues are detected, the system triggers an alert to the relevant data steward before the problematic data can propagate through downstream systems. This preventive approach dramatically reduced the time spent on data cleanup while improving overall quality metrics by 65%. The most sustainable organizations also recognize that human attention is a finite resource and design their data governance accordingly. They automate routine checks and balances wherever possible, reducing the cognitive burden on team members and increasing the likelihood that governance activities will continue even when priorities shift. A financial services firm developed a governance system that automatically measures data completeness, consistency, and accuracy on a continuous basis. Instead of requiring monthly manual audits, which frequently got delayed or skipped during busy periods, the automated system ensures consistent monitoring regardless of competing priorities. When issues are detected, the system generates specific actionable alerts rather than general quality reports that might be ignored. Another hallmark of sustainable data practices is the establishment of clear ownership and accountability structures that survive personnel changes and reorganizations. The most successful organizations embed data responsibilities directly into role descriptions and performance evaluations rather than treating them as additional optional activities. A retail organization restructured its data governance to establish permanent data domain owners aligned with business processes rather than organizational structures. When the marketing department later reorganized, the customer data domain ownership remained stable, ensuring continuity in data management practices despite the organizational change. The domain owners received dedicated time allocations for their data responsibilities, acknowledging that quality management requires consistent attention. But perhaps the most important characteristic of organizations that maintain data quality over time is their adoption of a continuous improvement mindset. Rather than viewing data governance as a static set of rules, they treat it as an evolving practice that requires regular assessment and refinement. A manufacturing company established a quarterly data governance review process where stakeholders evaluate the effectiveness of current practices and identify opportunities for improvement. This regular check-in prevents governance processes from becoming outdated or irrelevant as business needs change. During one such review, they discovered that their product classification standards had fallen out of alignment with how the sales team actually sold their products, a misalignment that was causing reporting inconsistencies. Rather than forcing the sales team to adopt the outdated classification, they updated the data standards to reflect current business realities. Building sustainable data practices also requires acknowledging and designing for human psychology. Organizations that achieve lasting data quality recognize that humans naturally seek the path of least resistance, and they design their data systems accordingly. A technology company redesigned their data entry interfaces based on behavioral science principles to make correct data entry easier than incorrect entry. They incorporated intelligent defaults, validation checks, and visual cues that guided users toward quality practices without requiring additional effort. Their redesign reduced data entry errors by 43% while actually decreasing the time required to complete forms. Sustainable data practices also extend to how organizations handle the ever-increasing volume of data they collect. Rather than defaulting to storing everything indefinitely, forward-thinking organizations implement clear data lifecycle management policies that include provisions for archiving and deletion. An energy company developed a tiered data storage strategy that automatically moves data between storage solutions based on access frequency and business value. Data that hasn't been accessed in 18 months gets flagged for review, and data owners must explicitly justify its continued storage. This approach not only reduced storage costs by 30%, but also improved performance and simplified data governance by focusing attention on actively used information. Another crucial element of sustainable data practices is building resilience to organizational changes. Data initiatives often falter during leadership transitions, reorganizations, or strategy shifts. Organizations with staying power build their data practices to withstand these inevitable changes. A healthcare organization created a data governance charter formally ratified by their board of directors, establishing data governance as an organizational commitment transcending individual leadership tenures. When a new CIO joined the organization with different technology priorities, the charter ensured that data governance activities continued uninterrupted while adaptations to the new leadership vision were thoughtfully incorporated. These sustainability principles can be integrated into a comprehensive framework for building lasting data practices. The Sustainable Data Management Framework consists of 5 interconnected elements: proactive quality management, automated governance, embedded accountability, continuous assessment, and lifecycle optimization. Proactive quality management focuses on preventing issues rather than cleaning them up after they occur. This includes implementing validation at the point of data creation, establishing clear data entry standards, and designing intuitive interfaces that encourage quality practices. The goal is to make it easier to do the right thing than the wrong thing when it comes to data. Automated governance reduces the human effort required to maintain quality standards over time. By automating routine monitoring, issue detection, and even basic remediation, organizations can ensure consistent governance even when human attention is directed elsewhere. This doesn't eliminate the need for human judgment, but it does reserve that judgment for meaningful decisions rather than routine checks. Embedded accountability incorporates data responsibilities directly into organizational roles and performance expectations. Rather than treating data management as a separate function, it becomes an integral part of how teams operate. This integration ensures that data quality doesn't depend on special initiatives or temporary focus. Continuous assessment establishes regular review cycles for data practices to ensure they remain relevant and effective as business needs evolve. Rather than waiting for major problems to emerge, these reviews proactively identify gaps and opportunities for improvement before they impact business operations. Finally, lifecycle optimization recognizes that not all data has equal value and establishes clear processes for managing data throughout its useful life. This includes policies for retention, archiving, and deletion that balance business value against storage and governance costs. Beyond implementing sustainable frameworks lies perhaps the most challenging aspect of data transformation: measuring intangible cultural change. What if the metrics you're currently using to gauge success are actually blind to the most critical factors determining whether your organization truly becomes data-driven? Lifecycle optimization establishes how data should flow through your organization, but knowing whether these practices have become embedded in your culture is remarkably difficult to measure. Most organizations find themselves in a peculiar position. After implementing data frameworks, they've deployed the technology, established the processes, yet still struggle to determine if meaningful cultural transformation is occurring. Traditional metrics often focus exclusively on technical implementation, system uptime, data quality scores, or the number of active dashboard users. While these measurements provide useful information about your technical infrastructure, they reveal almost nothing about whether your organization's relationship with data has fundamentally changed. A dashboard can have perfect uptime while being completely ignored in decision-making processes. The challenge lies in developing a measurement approach that captures both the technical and human dimensions of data transformation. This requires a balanced scorecard that integrates technical metrics with behavioral indicators and connects them directly to business outcomes. Let's start with leading indicators, early signals that cultural change is beginning to take hold. One powerful leading indicator is the frequency of data-driven decision-making meetings across your organization. Are teams regularly coming together specifically to review data before making key decisions? This behavioral metric reveals more about your evolving culture than any technical measurement could. Another valuable leading indicator is tracking the number of employees participating in data literacy programs. But don't stop at counting attendance, measure engagement through practical application. How many employees are actively applying their new knowledge in day-to-day work? Are they asking more sophisticated questions about data? Are they challenging assumptions, using evidence rather than opinion? These forward-looking metrics provide early validation that your culture is shifting, but they must be balanced with lagging indicators that confirm lasting change. One key lagging indicator is monitoring the number and nature of data quality issues reported across your organization. In immature data cultures, quality issues are either ignored entirely or reported only when they become critical failures. As your culture matures, you'll notice more proactive identification of potential issues before they impact business operations. Similarly, tracking the time taken to resolve data-related problems offers insights into cultural maturity. In organizations with strong data cultures, resolution times typically decrease, not because technical capabilities have improved, but because cross-functional collaboration has become more effective. Teams no longer waste time debating who owns the problem. They focus on solving it together. Decision-making processes provide particularly rich territory for measuring cultural transformation. Consider implementing a systematic approach to assess what percentage of key decisions are made based on data insights versus intuition alone. This isn't about eliminating experience and judgment. Rather, it's about tracking whether data insights are consistently part of the decision-making equation. One financial institution implemented a simple but effective technique. After each significant decision meeting, participants anonymously rated the extent to which data informed the final decision on a scale of 1-5. By tracking these ratings over time, leadership gained visibility into whether their stated commitment to data-driven decision-making was translating into actual practice. The trend line proved more valuable than any individual rating. Data literacy represents another critical dimension for measurement. Rather than assuming training leads to capability, implement periodic assessments that evaluate employees' understanding of data concepts and their ability to apply them in role-specific contexts. These assessments shouldn't feel like standardized tests, but rather practical scenarios relevant to daily work. A healthcare organization developed role-specific data literacy assessments for clinical staff, administrators, and leadership. Each assessment focused on the specific data skills most relevant to that role. Tracking scores over time revealed which departments were developing true data fluency and which needed additional support. The assessments themselves became learning opportunities, reinforcing key concepts and practical applications. Qualitative feedback mechanisms add essential depth to your measurement approach. Regular surveys can capture evolving perceptions about data's role and value, but don't stop there. Focus groups with cross-functional representation provide nuanced insights into how different departments experience data initiatives. These sessions often reveal friction points and opportunities that quantitative metrics miss entirely. One manufacturing company conducts quarterly data culture roundtables with representatives from every function. These facilitated discussions explore how data is being used in daily work, what barriers teams encounter, and what successes they've achieved. The insights gathered inform adjustments to their data strategy and highlight where additional support is needed. Exit interviews also provide unexpectedly valuable insights into data culture. When departing employees discuss their experiences candidly, they often reveal truths about how data initiatives are perceived on the ground that current employees might hesitate to share. Smart organizations systematically capture these perspectives to identify cultural barriers. The most sophisticated measurement approaches connect cultural metrics directly to business value creation. This connection demonstrates that cultural change isn't just a feel-good exercise, but a driver of tangible business results. Start by correlating improvements in data literacy and culture with key performance indicators such as revenue growth or cost savings. For example, a retail organization tracked the correlation between departments' data literacy assessment scores and their operational efficiency metrics. They discovered that departments scoring in the top quartile for data literacy consistently outperformed others in inventory management and customer satisfaction, translating to measurable cost savings and revenue growth. A comprehensive measurement framework combines specific metrics across multiple dimensions. Consider implementing these concrete measures. Track the number of data-driven projects initiated by non-technical departments. This indicates growing comfort with data across your organization. When marketing or operations teams proactively seek out data insights rather than waiting for IT to suggest analytics projects, you're witnessing true cultural change. Monitor employee engagement scores specifically related to data initiatives. Are people excited about new data capabilities, or do they view them as burdensome additional requirements? This sentiment tracking provides an early warning system for cultural resistance. Measure the sophistication of data questions being asked throughout your organization. As data culture matures, questions evolve from simple reporting requests. How many units did we sell last month? To more complex analytical inquiries. What factors best predict customer churn in our premium segment? This evolution signals deeper engagement with data's potential. Track cross-functional collaboration on data initiatives. Count how many projects include representation from multiple departments, and measure the quality of those collaborations through participant feedback. Strong data cultures break down silos naturally as teams recognize shared data interests. Measure the usage patterns of self-service analytics tools. Beyond counting logins, analyze what types of analyses different user groups are conducting. Are they performing increasingly sophisticated analyses over time? Are they sharing insights with colleagues? These behaviors indicate growing data fluency and confidence. To truly understand cultural change, combine quantitative metrics with qualitative assessment. Develop a data culture maturity model with clearly defined stages, from data resistant to data driven. Use your measurement framework to place different departments on this spectrum and track their progression over time. Remember that cultural transformation occurs unevenly across organizations. Some departments will race ahead while others struggle with fundamental concepts. Your measurement approach should identify these variations to target intervention where it's most needed. Ultimately, the most compelling evidence of successful data culture transformation comes from stories of changed behavior. Capture and share examples of teams using data to solve problems in new ways, of leaders explicitly incorporating data insights into strategic decisions, and of employees at all levels becoming more confident data consumers. These narrative examples, supported by the quantitative metrics we've discussed, paint a comprehensive picture of cultural change in action. They inspire others by making abstract concepts concrete and demonstrate what success looks like in your specific organizational context. Throughout this journey, we've seen how transforming your organization's relationship with data hinges not on technology but on people. Organizations that prioritize data culture are 5 times more likely to make faster decisions than their competitors, a competitive advantage that can't be ignored in today's marketplace. Your path forward is clear. Take the assessment framework we've shared and honestly evaluate your organization's current data maturity. Then methodically implement the collaboration techniques we've outlined to address your specific gaps. Remember that sustainable transformation happens incrementally through consistent application of these principles. The organizations that thrive don't just collect data, they create environments where everyone understands how data connects to their role and the company's success. By focusing on culture first, you position your teams to drive innovation and adapt more effectively to changing market conditions and customer needs.